part of this process. Minnetonka has a long history of being a partner with HumanEX, and we've used HumanEX tools for a significant period of time, in particular as we analyze the talents of leaders. This particular interview that was done of the two finalists is about 2+ hours in length and about 100 questions. And a thank you to the candidates, because the interviews occurred over the weekend, and I understand that people getting up that time sometimes can be challenging. But one of our top senior analysts was able to get the interviews conducted over the weekend. The analyzing the data and completing the profiles that you have in front of you occurred yesterday, and so Brad will take time this evening to go through the details of what was uncovered during the interviews relating to the talents. Just a quick introduction of Brad. Brad is the president, CEO, and founder of HumanEX Venture, and Brad's had about 25+ years of working in this area, and his experiences have basically led to the founding principles of HumanEX, which are an organization built on experience, that talent and culture drives not only the success of individuals, teams, and organizations, but also the success of communities as well. So with that, Brad, I'm going to hand it off to you.
All right. Well, thank you for everybody. Thank you for supporting the process. I thought it would be helpful, since you have the detail, to just give you a couple of slides, kind of a framework and context, so you can look at things, or we can all look at things through kind of a common lens. And so what we really measured was what you see on the slide on the left side. You know, that's the number one predictor of performance in every role, always has been, always will be. And the right side is important, but the right side and the left side are not the same. And this is the way that we can look at candidates through a common lens, common questions, same process, so it's the apples to apples, where the rest of the resume won't be apples to apples. So we know that experience, training, education, knowledge, skill is all very important, but that is inconsistent in predicting performance. And fit is also important for success and for retention. The number one is talent. In the next slide that I'll highlight, that points this out in a little bit different fashion, is like a Bloom's or Maslow hierarchy. The foundation has to be there for somebody to be a high performer. We can know things, that's the top. We can do things, which is the middle. But it's consistently who somebody is, consistent pattern of thought and behavior, that is predictive of behavior and performance. So that's what we're going to have a chance to talk through today. And the first candidate, we're going to blow up. You'll see in both of these the visuals of talent and how we blow that up into, again, another hierarchy. So in the visual that I'm showing, I put that in the hierarchy that we teach. Yours shows it in an order that will be consistent, and I'll review each theme to give it a little bit more color, and then I'll highlight the 3 levels of intensity that we measure. Any questions before I get into candidate 1A?
No, I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so this is the best visual of what's inside candidate 1A. So what I'll highlight here, and again you can reference in your document, is when you see the bold red, that's exceptional. That means that literally cannot be turned off. That is going to contribute to this person's behavior. That's going to contribute consistently, and it stands out even among leaders highly self-motivated. So in candidate 1A, you can see that mission drive, which is very common in education, although it's not prevalent in every leader. It's most common in professions like education and healthcare, where it's like a servant leader saying, I want to do things for others. I want to lead for others. It's the one thing that would be most aligned with servant leadership. They will sacrifice for others. They're not in it for glory. They're in it for impact for other people. So that's exceptional when it comes to candidate 1A. The drive to achieve the different kind of motivation, so it's a separate one, additional one, and that's an intensity about I want to do better, I want to do more. Literally, we talked about how they turn their dial to 0 every morning. They could have had a great day yesterday, and they start all over every morning. Sometimes people will say they're competitors. It's not accurate the way we measure it, that they're competitors against themselves, but they don't need a competition, a competitor, or any contest in order to work hard and work harder. They do it every day. So there's an intensity with somebody who's driven to achieve. So the two greatest talents in candidate 1A is mission-driven, achievement-driven, followed by impact drive. And impact drive, sometimes people call it ego drive, but sometimes people think ego drive is egotistical, and it's not. It's about challenging self to do things that matter. They're going to pursue challenges consistently that other people would not. They won't do easy jobs. They want challenges. They will pursue more difficult things that other people would say, why are you taking that hard job? Why don't you just take it easy? They can't, they don't want to, it's one more way that they're driven. So those are the three things that stand out in candidate A on the foundation of drives and values. Competitive drive, we didn't see that, hear that. Values we saw thumb, and that's really articulating, expressing clear values around integrity. It doesn't mean somebody doesn't have any values, but more private. It's not public, it's not articulated. So we measure the foundation, drives, and values together. It's really the engine and the steering. And if they don't have that, the rest really doesn't matter. But as you can see in candidate A, you've got a good foundation. Questions before I go into work style?
Brad, did I hear you say then that values is equated with integrity? Is that correct?
Integrity is part of that. We're probing questions about how they express values that are non-negotiable, that they express to others. So, they're public about their North Compass, so to speak.
Okay.
They're driven the decisions around the North Compass. And there's many times people have great values, but they're quiet about it, and you could watch them and know them over time say, I never see them do anything wrong, but you don't always know why they're doing what they're doing. So when this is stronger, you see them expressing it.
Thank you.
Any questions before we get into work style? So work style is how you get the job done. In every role, somebody's going to expect you to get it done. And the red goals, goal focus is where are we going, and they use measurement and they use progress as a way to align their team and their organization. They just don't say, well, let's try, let's work hard. They have a clear focus of where they're going and where they're taking others. Sometimes we use the analogy of they're not responsible to get to the West Coast in their own car. They've got to get the fleet there. So they've got to make sure that we're going to find Interstate 90 or 94 and we're going to go west. And is that where everyone's going? So whatever metrics they're using to measure where they're going, they will be clear about those. They will want data. They will use data to guide their decisions and to guide other people. Orchestrator is a different work style talent, and that's one where we literally think about the symphony come out with a stick. They make music. They've got resources, and they've got demands, and they've got to make sure those demands are met through the resources. They multitask. They orchestrate all those resources to get things done. and say, hey, let me just work on my inbox. They can be out and about where there's dynamic demands, and they're very comfortable in a dynamic world. It's one that really trips leaders up when they don't have it, because you literally can't slow the world down. You can organize it, but the world's going to come at you as it does, whether it's a phone call, knock on the door, meeting that you've got to get to, an emergency. And these are people that are comfortable in a dynamic world. So those are the two that stand out the most in responsibility is in ownership, psychological ownership. I will do what I say I'm going to do. So it's like values, what is in the work style. You're going to count on them to do what they say they're going to do. If they have to work early, work late, sacrifice, they will do it because they can be counted on. They'll build trust because they're dependable through the talent we measure as responsibility. Discipline is the one that didn't come up, where they structure on-time events. That's really efficiency. So it's like, how do they get 10 hours of work done in 8 hours? Well, people that are highly disciplined have lists, they have priorities, they have plans, and they put structure where structure doesn't exist, and they get more done every day. So with every one of these, we really have to ask the question, are they motivated? The answer is yes. Is candidate 1A going to get things done? Yes. What the specific themes we measure are going to describe how they get it done. What's going to be their style, what's going to be easy, what's not going to be easy. So before I go into relationships, any questions about work style?
No.
All right, relationships, a lot of nuances to relationships. Three that stand out is networker, developer, and actually, I just noticed, stimulator should be culture catalyst. So if you notice that, I need to change that, but culture catalyst is the one that should be bolded instead of stimulator. So stimulator is part of culture catalyst, but it's bigger. So let's start with networker.
Ours has culture
Network.
catalyst bullet.
We don't have stimulator.
We don't have stimulator. Ours has culture catalyst bullet.
Right. So you have the right one. This stimulator should read culture catalyst.
Okay.
So stimulator is part of culture catalyst, but culture catalyst is the net of all of that. So networker is many times people would say one of the most important in superintendent, because you think about how many stakeholders they're responsible to respond to. They've got to be visible. They've got to be intentional in building relationships with you as a board, with staff, with students. When this is weak, they're usually quiet, not present, not visible, not known, and it is, in many cases, for a community, it's a game changer. When they don't have it, it's a real asset when they do. So that's bold. It's not like the very best we study, but it's solid and it's consistent and you can count on it. Number two, I'm going to talk about one of the three most rare of all the things we measure, and that's developer. And that's a person who invests in other people. They love to see how people are going to grow on their staff and in their organization by intentional investment. We don't see this a lot in business. We see it a lot more in education. But it's a very rare, it's one of the three rarest we measure on everything that you're reading in front of you. So to have it is a set apart right away. And it makes a difference for this person's staff because they're thinking about how to grow them, graduate them, continuing to invest in them. The third one, which should be culture catalyst, which you read on the screen as stimulator, is a person that literally thinks about the conditions that they're going to create where people are going to be highly engaged and give their all. When somebody's intentional about the culture being built, if this was red, we would talk about them like an engineer or an architect. When it's black, when it's bolded, but not red at the highest level, they believe in it, they will support it. They may not be at the engineer level of literally being able to pull out the blueprints and tell you how they do it. So set apart when they do, but it's one level below the very best. And then empathy and relator are the two that are not bolded, and that is, how do I connect to people? How do I read body language? How do I anticipate what, my words are going to, how they're going to impact somebody else? People with strong empathy, they have a big radar, they have an antenna that picks up signals consistently from other people. They don't read minds, but they have like a sixth sense when it comes to how they connect and how people feel. So, very important for leaders to have that way to connect to other people. And then the relator, which is the last one in this category, is the one that says, I like one-on-one strong relationships with the people that report to me. I would just as soon walk across the building to go spend one-on-one time with them than to do something more efficient, picking up the phone. They look for ways to be closer to their people, like a coach. And we don't mean an athletic coach, we mean in the behavioral sense. Many times we call this the coach talent. They like the strong one-on-one relationships that they can invest in with other people. So before I go into influence, any questions on what you have in front of you, what we measure with candidate 1A?
No, thank you.
All right, now we get into influence. This is a higher level. This is the rarest category. This is where we will many times not find very much. We never hear the comments made, we have too much leadership. And this is the construct, the level that most ties to the word leader. They can change behavior, change conditions, they can make things happen. This is where you start to see the transformational impact of a leader. So group synergist is the one candidate 1A stands out, and that is how to, in a sense, activate other people, how to bring people together, how to form a team, how to form a group that may not be on the same page, but to be able to bring a group together and be this synergist so that group becomes stronger and they're creating the conditions to move that group of individuals to action. Second one that follows is activators. Sometimes we just nickname this the Nike team, just do it. They pull the trigger. They don't want to have more discussions. They don't want to have another meeting. Doesn't mean they won't, think things through, but they're action oriented. Sometimes they'll irritate people if people want to talk until everything's perfect. They'll go with the 80%. We know enough. Let's go. So they will activate a group consistently, and many times people will give them the reference as a leader because of this talent. The other three, these stand out. Doesn't mean they can't, don't, won't, but we didn't see consistent evidence. We can tell you can count on this. So command is the confidence to take charge. Courage is the increased determination to face resistance when there's dissent and conflict. When it's not strong, they won't push back. When it's strong, they will. Persuasiveness is how you sell yourself, how you sell a vision, how you sell the organization. Through logic and emotion, you're educating people about a better way. So that's the influence level for candidate 1A. Questions?
No.
All right. Last but not least, the greatest strength for candidate is thought process. Everything is either bolded or red bolded. So here are two more of the rarest counts we measure. Over in the right-hand category, vision and strategic agility are two of the other three that are very rare. Vision is that picture of the future that other people can't see, in obvious ways. It's a vision of a better future, and they're literally selling people like sometimes we would use Martin Luther King, I have a dream, or the Walt Disney, I'm in Florida swampland, and I can see Walt Disney. It's a Disney World. So they're always thinking about what can be and helping people see what they see. Strategic agility is literally seeing around the corner. They're the what-if thinkers. They're the people who see that the trends are going a different way than the majority might take in them. They can see out this way, but everybody else wanted to go that way. And so, if you know these people, many times they have to find the one or two people around them that understands they can see things that most people can't. But it's linear, and literally around the corner they can see things that other people can't see. Then to finish this out over on the left-hand side, conceptualization would be day-to-day, in a daily way, the most powerful and practical talent in this category. And those are big picture thinkers that can figure things out. They're street smart, they speak with analogies, they love to interpret, they take complex and make it simple. There's wisdom in how they talk and teach. They're great people about why and how. So they're always trying to figure out for themselves why we're doing this and how does it work. And when people ask them, they don't say just because or that's the way it is. They explain it. They're good explainers because they can break down the world in ways that help people understand what's going on. So a very powerful one. I'll jump to operational thinking before I get to the last one. So operational thinking is systems and processes. They value, you don't get there through effort. If you want scalability or quality or consistency, you've got to design it. You've got to have outcomes by design. And they're very comfortable spending more time on the front end to literally put the blueprints together or the playbook together before action is taken. So they're great thinkers. This is about 15% of leaders stand out in that way. And then business acumen, we don't literally mean business when we say that. We mean they're good stewards of resources, and they're going to maximize value of time and other resources. So they would treat it like their own, and they would maximize any kind of resources, time, money, people that they would have. So that's a short summary of candidate 1A in the three categories. And you've got the sheets to reference in detail. But any questions before we go to candidate 1B?
No, I think we're ready to move on.
All right. 1B. At the bottom, we've gone through the themes, so I'll go a little quicker, but stop me if you'd like. So mission, much like 1A, driven by a focus on what others need to sacrifice. What we see in great education leaders is they're there for other people. They will sacrifice and focus on other people's needs. Values stood out. Achiever drive stood out. Impact drive stood out. The only one I didn't was competitive drive. And I will put in this, and I even put it in one of your documents, that not everything is relevant. The fact that somebody needs a competition or numbers to be motivated, hey, it's a helpful thing for you to know if they are that way, but this is a very self-motivated person, and they don't need that. So it's not, I would say to most people, it's not relevant when it's not there, when it doesn't stand out. It's very different than mission drive. It behaves different, but that's the only one in that level, in that construct, that doesn't stand out. Ready for work stuff?
Yes.
All right. Very similar to the 1A. Work, great responsibility, very strong. So to be able to multitask, get a lot done, work in a dynamic world, literally multitask with 5 virtual inboxes, no problem. Responsibility, very strong ownership for outcomes. Goal focus, very clear where we're at, where we're going, how to metric, how to align other people. Discipline, be nice to have more. There may need to be more structure put into the role or somebody to support the person. But higher level discipline isn't the difference between a great leader and a not great leader. It's just a way that they can say, you know what, I might need some help bringing more structure into my world so I can be more efficient. But responsibility is the one that stands out the most, which is no matter what it takes, I will get it done and I'll deliver. Relationships, great strength, candidate 1B. You see 4 out of the 5. Remember, stimulators should be culture catalysts. Stood out like the very best we studied. So empathy, exceptional. ultra catalyst, exceptional. And I made the distinction earlier. When it's read, it's at the level of like the engineer and the architect. They're thinking about how do we intentionally create the conditions where we have a great culture and a great climate. Relator is that coach, that one-on-one. The staff is going to notice this person. They want a relationship one-on-one. Networker is the 1-on-10, one on the community, very visible. And the developer, again, with this candidate, both of these are unusual in the sense the developer stands out. But you rarely will find somebody who goes 5 for 5 in relationship on the leader interview. Influence, we talked about group Synergist earlier. Man is one, again, where somebody has the confidence. They walk in the room, they walk into a meeting, and you can feel their presence. They have the confidence. You know, it's like sometimes you see in athletics, the quarterback that gives the team confidence when they walk in the huddle. And that's the same impact that this kind of person has. Courage is increased determination, resistance. So to work through where there's resistance of any kind, this person is going to work through it. It's very highly valued by followers, sometimes not as much by peers. And so peers, it all depends on if they're high courage or not. So sometimes you just have to realize that this person, they don't manage it, but it's with them all the time. And they're going to be more clear, more assertive, and even challenging people with authority. So you've got to be prepared that to look at this as a gift, because they're not going to BS people. They're going to tell you what they're thinking, and what they're feeling, and what they need. So communication is typically going to be very clear. The activator and persuasiveness are ones that didn't stand out in this one. But again, 3 out of 5, they're at the highest level. The question is, can they influence other people? And the answer is clearly yes. And then, last but not least, like the last candidate, lots of strength. Again, in 2 of the 3 rarest talents, vision, strategic agility, very strong. Very, very unusual to see strategic agility at that red level. I mean, we could be interviewing another 50 people and might find it once or twice. It's very rare. So, what we will many times counsel this person with is make sure you slow down and help people know what you're seeing and thinking, because you see it before other people do. You got to bring people along. It's almost like they can see the next 3 street lights and they're all green, and everybody else doesn't see me yet. So to know that this is a gift, the dark side of this is that it will see things that most people won't, and you have to, to ask them, tell me how, tell me where, how do we understand what you're seeing? Because they do understand things that most people don't, in terms of the path or the strategy to go somewhere long term. We talked about operational thinking in terms of systems and processes, business acumen. We just talked about conceptualization, that ability to think big picture, break complex down into simple. So this is the best way that we can highlight 2 different people, apples to apples, do the same questions, the same process, measuring the same things. So, any questions that I can help with?
Yes. I actually had one. I noticed in the influence section that group Synergist is like a bigger font. Is that weighted or is that just accidental on our handout?
Probably just probably my 5 fingers in the handout.
Okay, just making sure it wasn't like a weighted thing.
No.
Okay.
No, and that's a good question, is because none of these are weighted. They're all straight. I mean, the only thing they're weighted is intensity, and that's where you see the black bold, the red bold, or not.
Thank you.
So, are you able to share with us, based on your experience in doing this screening for a number of different superintendent positions, looking just at the talents, what candidate is stronger in the role of a superintendent?
Candidate wouldn't be blue. You can do a simple count of how many reds compared to the 2 candidates. Right there will tell you a lot. The second part of that, though, is it balanced? because when we get into each one of these, they kind of, in a sense, stand alone, and we rarely see that the bottom and the top is weak. Where we see people struggle or fail is in the middle, and typically in the relationships and influence. I would tell you, 9 times out of 10 where leaders fail, it's in those 2 categories. In fact, there's times we'll be publishing a book in next year, but a whole chapter in this book for higher ed leaders is I put in there the question of, if they can't check 5 boxes, you don't have a transformational leader. And these 5 boxes are those 5 constructs that you see in front of you. You have to check all 5 boxes if you're going to be a transformational leader.
I think one other comment about that, Fred, is as the complexity of the leadership position grows, in other words, the superintendent position is a very complex leadership position. It really sits at the top of the hierarchy when you're thinking about leadership roles. I think what we see is that the ones who are most successful in that type of role need to be very strong in influence, relationships, and thought process. They need to have some balance in work style and drives and values, but if they are not strong in thought process, influence, or relationships, as your leadership complexity goes up, relationships, influence, and thought process become more important.
Yeah, in fact, I would say so strong that, as I was saying before, I've never seen anybody have success as a transformational leader, meaning change as the world changes, change an organization, adapt as the world changes, if they don't have all 5. And so if you don't find significant bold and red in the relationship and influence, it's almost like the thought process can't be accessed. It's like, man, if we could read that, if we could know what they were thinking, but there's not the relationships or sharing it in difficult times when there's dissent or conflict or avoiding telling people what they're thinking, it's like we can't access that top part. So, the nice thing when we look at this is we want to look for balance where we can say in every category there's significant strength and there's breadth. You can't get by with one bullet in a category. You put a big strain on somebody and expect a lot of support of that team or the people that support them to make it work. So you need more in the middle.
Great, thank you, that's very helpful.
Anybody else have any questions?
No? All right, well, thank you, and we especially appreciate you, gentlemen, turning all of this around so quickly. We know it was a big ask, so we appreciate that we were giving you names on Friday and we were delivering today, so.
Happy to help. It's our pleasure.
Thank
It's a very, very important decision.
Yes, it absolutely is. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.